I would like to talk to you about robots. Would anybody here care to admit to ever having watched one of the Terminator movies? There you go. And you remember the premise of the Terminator movies was that in the future, there would be a race of machines, of robots, that would be more powerful than human beings and would seek to take over the Earth. And this is a myth and a premise. This is Prometheus, this is Frankenstein, this is Isaac Asimov, this idea that human beings would one day create robots, machines that would be more powerful than us. The problem is that you don't actually have to look to science fiction to find these machines. These are the robots that walk among us. And I want you to just stop and think about this a minute. First of all, they outlive their creators. John D. Rockefeller has been dead an awfully long time, and Chevron is not programmed to die. Neither is the Bank of America. The Giannini brothers are long gone. They outlive their creators. We need to dispense with the idea that these multinationals are actually collections of human beings. The human beings who have their hands on the steering wheel at any given point, the capital that funds them, changes day to day, hour to hour. Once we begin to think of these corporations not as collections of human beings, but as machines, and start to think about how the machines are programmed, something that's going on with trade and going on with a lot of other issues becomes much more clear. And the first question, of course, is how are they programmed? What are their objectives? What are they designed to do? This is what they are designed to do. Not all businesses, not all corporations, but there are a set of large, eternal, multinational corporations, and their vision of the world is that the Earth is essentially a rock with valuable resources that need to be yanked out of it and converted into money. Look at this quote. This is last week from the CEO of ExxonMobil. What good is it to save the planet if humanity suffers? This is the mentality not of human beings. This is the mentality of corporations. This is the mentality of a machine. And what is it that the machine fears more than anything else? The one thing that could actually throw an obstacle in the path of the machine is democracy and citizen action. That is the one thing that the machine really fears most. This is a picture from the town where I live, Cochabamba. I actually live in a small rural pueblo, Tiquipaya, just outside of Cochabamba, where most of my neighbors are cows and people who grow corn. So I'm like the boy in the big city today. But this is Cochabamba during what is the now famous water revolt. This is what citizen power looks like. This is what the citizen power looked like that kicked the Bechtel Corporation of Beale Street in San Francisco out of Cochabamba. But corporations are not stupid. The machine is not stupid. It spends an awful lot of money on smart lawyers figuring out how to undermine democracy. And it has a new set of tools. And this is what those tools are about. This is the cover of a report that I hope you will all read. We'll have the website up there later. We just put this out this week, called Unfair, Unsustainable, and Under the Radar: How Corporations Use Global Investment Rules to Undermine a Sustainable Future. This is the new corporate weapon. This is the machine that the Terminator has come back to planet Earth with in the name of undermining democracy and the environment. So let's talk about how it works. Let's suppose that you are a community, that you are la gente de las cabañas, who don't want arsenic poured into their drinking water by a corporation from Canada. Or you're the people of Cochabamba, who don't want your water taken over by Bechtel. So you do what democracy says you should do. You build a citizen movement. You take power. You organize. You take risks. Some of you even die. And you win. Because that's what movements do. But then, all of a sudden, as you're walking down the road toward a different path, along comes the system of investment tribunals. And how does that work? It says that if you are a corporation And the government has taken a policy, or the people have taken a policy, that potentially infringes. This isn't about taking away something you own. This isn't about occupying a factory. This is about the government and the people have done something that means that in the future you might not make as much money as you intended. You can sue for the money that you thought you were going to earn and aren't able to. That's what the system is about. It's a beautiful system because it means that 3 lawyers sitting behind closed doors in Washington, D.C. can overrule the public policy of a country. It's a brilliant strategy if you're the machine and you're trying to get rid of this little annoyance called democracy. Bechtel versus Bolivia. When Bechtel came to Bolivia from San Francisco and took over the water system of the country in a privatization deal coerced by the World Bank, they invested, and we were able to document this, they invested $1 million. $1 million. And they demanded $50 million. And if anybody knows where I can get a 50-to-1 return on investment, I will be in the back of the auditorium after the panel. Pacific Rim versus El Salvador, $315 million. You know what $315 million looks like to a country like El Salvador? It looks like 1% of GDP. That's what it looks like. And it's not just poor countries in Latin America. After the fiasco around nuclear power in Japan with the tsunami, activists in Germany got the government to impose a ban on new nuclear energy. And lo and behold, this company from Switzerland comes along and says, well, that's going to cost you 700 million euro, because we were sort of counting on making the money. Not only that, but these cases cost these governments millions and millions of dollars to defend. And now we have a new market, because these cases are not only financed by the corporations. If I'm a corporation, I say, hey, I've got this hot demand against Uruguay. Now there's one in Bolivia. I got a gold mining case. I've got this gold mining case, and I think we're going to get $500 million. How about you finance the lawsuit and we'll give you 30%? It's a new market. There are investors who invest in these cases as money-making opportunities. That is the system that the machine has designed to take away democracy. That is what this is about. Growth of a monster. Look at this. From 1993 to 2012, the number of cases per year. This is a growth industry. It's a growth industry for the lawyers involved. It's a growth industry for the investors in the lawyers involved. It is now more lucrative to pan for gold in the World Bank's trade tribunal than to pan for gold in El Salvador. That's the way the system works, and that is what is at stake. So what do we do? The first thing we need to do is we need a much bigger movement. We need a much bigger movement. Let's be honest. We are all complete and total weirdos. In the scheme of things, who spends their Saturday on a sunny afternoon in Berkeley and San Francisco listening to PowerPoint presentations about trade? I mean, come on. Let's just admit it that we are not regular people. We need a lot more regular people to care about this. It reminds me back in a past life when I still lived here in California, I was the lobbyist for Common Cause at the state capitol, working on campaign finance reform. It's not my fault that we didn't get it. But in campaign finance reform, or your work on taking on the Koch brothers, it's how do we get all the people who are affected by these issues to understand that this is not the battleground for technicians and lawyers and trade experts. This is your environment at stake. I mean, come on. Uruguay's being sued by Philip Morris for putting health warnings on cigarette packages, for God's sake. Everything we care about is at stake, and somehow we need to figure out a way to communicate that to people so they understand that this is not technical gobbledygook. This is democracy. This is the future. Second, case by case, we need to make it clear, like we did to Bechtel. If you use this to screw around with people, we're going to screw around with you. And that's what we did with Bechtel. We messed with them in every way we could. We filed legal petitions. People here, amazing people here in San Francisco, chained themselves into the lobby of Bechtel's headquarters. We went after the CEO, a guy in, when I was writing about the water revolt, I got this amazing note from a guy who said, I can get you the personal email of the CEO of Bechtel. So the next morning he woke up and you have 4,000 pieces of email. We need to fight these cases. We need to make the corporations doing these cases, we need to out their executives, we need to fight them, we need to feel pain. And then third, we need to change the system. At minimum, we need to make sure that these international arbitration systems are not in these trade agreements. Aside from trying to kill the trade agreements, let's at least take this out. And I think there's hope here. The government in Australia, which is not Ecuador, Bolivia, Venezuela, it's not, you know, the left of South America by any means, said, you know, we've looked at this and it turns out we don't really think this is in our national interest to give foreign corporations this kind of extra power. If they don't like what we're doing, they can do what everybody else does and they can file a case in the civil court in our country. It's not in the interest of governments to do this. It's insane. We need to fight as much as we can. So look, find out more. Every organization represented on this panel has good information. Our organization, the Democracy Center, you can Google us or you can find us here. We're also part of a network that we put together with the Institute for Policy Studies in Washington called the Network for Justice and Global Investment. Get a hold of our report. Just go to the Democracy Center homepage. It's there. But the main message I have for you is this one. We have got to figure out a way to communicate what is important about this issue to the people who are not weirdos like us. And the sooner we do that, the better off we are, because Arnold Schwarzenegger and the machines are not going to be satisfied with anything less than total control. Thank you.